The riots that started in LA now spreading nationwide to other U.S. cities, Seattle, Chicago, Denver, and right here in New York City, which saw protesters blocking traffic. And this woman who was just trying to get to work.
I have a kid. If I don't, and these people are having their children taken and their parents. What about my kids? That's what happens to my kids. I can't help it. But you can if you could just move out the way. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do?
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work.
Yeah, who cares about work? Back to the epicenter. Los Angeles is bracing for a potential sixth day of anti-ICE riots as Mayor Karen Bass announces that the curfew will still be in effect again tonight and will go on as long as needed. Active duty U.S. Marines have arrived, but they have not yet stepped foot on the streets there. California Governor Gavin Newsom holding a televised address and ripped President Trump's decision to send military forces to L.A.
This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He chose theatrics over public safety. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project.
And this as President Trump is still toying with the idea of arresting Gavin Newsom.
Are you going to arrest Gavin Newsom?
Well, he's not doing a good job. You know, arrest, what does that mean? He's not doing a good job.
Charge him?
Well, in theory, you could, I guess. You know, it's almost like a dissipation of duty. Nobody's ever seen anything like that.
All right, so Paul, do you think an arrest should be made of the governor of California?
It's imminent. It's imminent.
You know, it's what he wants, obviously. You know, I mean, Newsom would love that. That's why he's saying, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. You know, but the thing to me is, why is he so outraged? What is it that is so upsetting to Gavin Newsom? Because if you think about it, the National Guard and the Marines, Marines aren't even on the ground yet. National Guard, they're standing around in front of federal courthouses to make sure that they don't get burnt down like we saw in Portland in 2020. What is it that's so offensive to him? What's so offensive is the fact that Trump had to come in and clean up his mess. I want to close the loop on something real quick. You know, there are all of this argument about how this is unconstitutional. We've never seen anything like it. It's the most outrageous thing a president's ever done. 1963, Brown versus Board of Education. When JFK wanted to desegregate the schools, George Wallace, governor of Alabama, wouldn't let him. Stood in front of the door, in the schoolhouse doorway to block black students from coming into class. So what did JFK do? Federalized and operationalized the National Guard. He sent them in. Wallace, get out of the way, and the rest is history. The point is, it's been done before. It's done when you need to do it. And this idea, you could almost articulate that this is, in a way, a preservation of the Union, because California seems to have decided that they're a sovereign nation, that arrest warrants from a federal judge don't apply. How dare you? You got to run them all through me. I'm Gavin Newsom. I'm the governor. And it's my country, you can't do it. No, it's not your country, pal. And so don't arrest him. It's what he wants, but keep doing what you're doing. Keep grabbing the worst of the worst.
Got it. Jessica, Gavin Newsom there in that interview said the downward spiral started in L.A. when the military arrived. Is that when it happened, or was it when protesters were hurling rocks at cops and Border Patrol?
That was obviously bad, and Gavin Newsom has been clear every single time that he has spoken and every single time that Mayor Bass has spoken. They have said that violence will not be tolerated and protesters who are being violent will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. They learned the lessons from 2020 and that summer, and they're being very clear about it. Gavin Newsom's point is a well-taken point, and Donald Trump need only listen to Donald Trump from 2020 to know that he is overstepping his authority. He sits down with George Stephanopoulos and says, I can't use the National Guard without the governor's permission. That's what Gavin Newsom is saying. Then also in 2020, when he's talking about invoking the Insurrection Act for Portland, he said there's no reason to do that. Now, those were arguably much bigger protests. There were many more problems in 2020 than there are right now. And the reason that we didn't need the National Guard, and we certainly didn't need the Marines, is that the LAPD itself said in a release that they didn't need any help, that they could contain it. And the reason that that's the case is this is on 0.02% of LA County. This is very small and isolated, and Donald Trump is doing what Donald Trump does best, and he's playing the same footage. He has that image, right, of that topless protester with the Mexican flag on top of a burning Waymo car, and it's terrible, and that guy should be prosecuted. You should not be able to do that. But that doesn't mean that in general, that's what's going on here. So Gavin Newsom is speaking for a majority of Americans. Right before we came on air, there was a new Quinnipiac poll that was released. So Donald Trump, -12 on approval in general, -11 on immigration, and -16 on deportations. He has taken his best issue and decimated it by making these deportations in a hasty way. It used to be go after the criminals. That's what we heard was going to happen. Now it's go to the nail salons, go to the job sites, go to birthday parties, go to immigration courts. There is now no right way to do it. There is no way to be part of the system, pay your taxes, make a better life for your family, and hopefully get citizenship. Stephen Miller is mad because they were deporting less people on a daily basis than Joe Biden was. So he went and he said, go to 7-Eleven and you go to Home Depot. And now Americans and illegals, who, yes, they're here illegally, are living in fear of what the government is trying to do. And just one more thing, the GOP caucus, like Valadejo, Gonzalez, representatives, they know that this is bad. Valadejo saying, please prioritize removal of known criminals. Gonzalez, focus on convicted criminals, not farm laborers.
To be clear, though, I mean, you have law-abiding citizens who are saying, protect us, right? As these protests emerge and the riots are happening and, cops are getting rocks thrown at them. Caroline Levitt at the White House press briefing today said, if we thought that the police, if the policies would change so that they're not kneecapped to be able to protect the law-abiding citizens, the military wouldn't have been needed. But Jesse, I want to bring you in here. Is the president handling this in the right way? Do you think, looking back, he would have changed anything about what he has done so far?
The police were not fine, Jessica. They said they were outgunned and they needed a lot of help. There's millions of dollars in damage. A lot of businesses got ransacked. Don't try to minimize it. And illegals should be a little scared. They broke into the country. A lot of them have committed crimes. I'd like them to be a little fearful, Jessica. And you know what would make it a lot easier to just target the criminals? If you guys would respect the ICE detainers. We could just go right to the prisons and then take them home. We wouldn't have to go through all these neighborhoods and do it willy-nilly. Maybe we could cooperate a little bit better. But the truth is this, and you're right, Paul. Gavin Newsom's emasculated. Trump reached into his state, took his guard, and used it to protect the people that Gavin either couldn't or wouldn't do. So he's calling him a strong man. I think that's a compliment for Donald Trump. I hear strong man. The guy's in a bunker like Biden with a pre-recorded video. Oh, this is an attack on democracy. They're really going to go with the dictator hoax? That whole attack on democracy thing, that message lost. It lost in a landslide. Attacking democracy is not enforcing the law. All they're doing here is enforcing the law. And they can't even get their story straight. All right, first there was no riot. Then there was a riot. Then it was peaceful. Then it was mostly peaceful. Then Trump provoked the violence. Now, how does Trump provoke violence if he lives in Washington? He wasn't out there doing anything. So the National Guard provoked the riots? Because I didn't see a single National Guardsman melt down a Waymo or loot a store. Not one. This is a 60-40 issue. And that's according to Insider Advantage, who nailed the last election. Gavin thinks it's good politics to let your own city burn down. That's good politics. Maybe the crazy base on the left thinks it's good because they love to see the country burn, but it's not good. These illegals, Jessica, think they're living in Mexico. They're waving the Mexican flag. They don't like America. They love living in L.A. because L.A. is great. It's nicer than Mexico, and you get free housing, free health care, free food. They don't even lay a finger on you. That's the problem here. They think they own the country, they don't respect the laws, and they don't respect the law enforcement. I think Trump should go harder. He needs to break the back of this ICE resistance and make sure everybody understands that this thing's not going to slow down. You can't be held hostage in your own country by foreigners, because that's what this is. It's an extortion attempt. Every time you try to enforce the law, we're going to burn stuff. That's not how it works. They need to clean this up before the World Cup and before the Olympics, because Trump wants to light the torch. He wants to be the one to hold the torch, and light it. And if there's riots going on, because you know there will be, it's not going to look good. Well, the eyes of the world are on us.
Fast forward to tonight, Brian, this could be a sixth night of riots there. We know the curfew is in effect. The mayor's got that in effect as long as it is needed. Do you expect this to continue?
Yeah, I do. 27 were arrested on Saturday, 40 on Sunday, 100 on Monday, 225 yesterday. So it's only getting worse. And when you talk about if the police chief needs help, you know, politically, they say they're acting on their own, but the mayor gives them the orders. Right. And the police chief on Sunday night, he kind of goes, yeah, I did need some backup.
So they were overwhelmed.
And here's the other thing that I find just almost like almost sacrilege in the law enforcement community. 55 minutes, between 35 and 55 minutes for help while ICE says we're overwhelmed and the numbers are high. Trump says, I'm never going to put up with that again. I'm going to do what I can do, and I'm going to put into action the National Guard. Here's why he's already been successful. All of a sudden, Eric Adams says, look, we might have problems in New York. We might be a sanctuary city, but we're not going to make sure that we're under control. If these riots in Dallas, in Denver, in San Antonio, some of the demonstrations, these states now feel compelled to keep things under control, or else Trump has already shown he can take action and start moving in the right direction. So there are criminals being picked up. The problem was there's a lot in Los Angeles and in Denver is because they allowed the illegal immigrants to take over their cities, to take over their social programs. So now as the pressure heats up, they speak out. But most Americans who vote are going, I'm not fighting for these guys. I need to get to work. I'm not fighting. You cut me off at the 101 freeway at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, I'm trying to get home after working 9 hours a day, and you want to win me over to your cause? Not going to happen. I think Trump loves it. Gavin Newsom made one critical mistake. He spent the longest time thinking that center left will be his future. When he cut that tape, he now says, I will be the voice, the inverse of Donald Trump. If he thinks that's going to get him the nomination, that's a huge leap, and it's going against what he thought prior. And that's when he had the podcast. He was interviewing Steve Bannon and Newt Gingrich and others to say, hey, and Charlie Kirk, I'm being reasonable here. Maybe there is another way than the Democratic way that we've done with the pronouns and everything else. So I think he made a critical error, but he's dug in now.
Speaking of Democrats, up next, the Democrat civil war erupts over the LA riots. John Fetterman is knocking some sense into AOC.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.